Welcome to Take Another Look, a current events and public affairs show bringing you news you can use. Our guest today is the founder of the African American Contractors Association, Mr. Omar Shareef. The African American Contractors Association has been very active in developing relationships that lead to opportunities, as well as technical management and assistance via workshops and seminars the group sponsors regularly. They also provide opportunities for networking by maintaining a strong and vibrant presence in the community. Mr. Shareef, welcome to Take Another Look.
And thank you for having me.
Well, let's start by telling the viewers how the organization was founded. You are a founding member?
Yes, I am. African American Contractors Association started in 1989 by way of the Chicago Urban League, which it was three individuals that really knocked on the Urban League door, told them that you gather, chasing a lot of work in the downtown area of the city, but in our own backyard, people are building and waking us up in the morning, and they don't look like us. And so the Urban League basically said, we'll furnish you with a desk, a phone, and some technical assistance, but we don't have the money or the time to go out there on those sites to find out who they are. If you guys can do that, we would do our due diligence and responsibility and bring them in the room. And so that's what they did. They assured us that we bring the contractors in, they will make sure the contractors tell us what they're doing in regards to African Americans on their project. And we found that with doing that, there was gold in our ghettos, and we was able to take part in it and actually bring some of them developers in, and they was able to share the work. And they admitted that nobody knocked on their door like we did. They admitted that they didn't know anyone. They admitted that they would use us again if the work and the job was done accordingly and professionally. And so we concur with that same thing by being contractors and people that were striving to do well. And so we did that. One of the first sites was in Chicago on 83rd Street in King Drive. It was a giant food store. And what was so interesting about that was the Chatham business and other community leaders that said that if they did not promise certain things to the community, they were going to make sure that they closed down. Nevertheless, we helped them build the store, and they helped close it down because they didn't keep their words. So it was a good deal. And then one of the other ones was Parkway Gardens that you probably hear a lot in the news. They bought that facility for $1 from the federal government. Miss Loretta Cardwell out of California, Miller Davis out of Michigan built it, and we had the opportunity to do all the concrete there. I had my own company, Universal Service, which we did concrete, landscaping, and general contracting work. So it gave us a real good footing. And out of 3 individuals, it gained to 300, and 300 became 2,500 in the later years. So it was a opportunity. Now, did I know that was going to be my career move? No. I was just trying to make some money. I was just basically wanted to be like some of my counterparts that I saw in the city and across the state. And that was like C.F. Moore, Ernie Bush, Robert Martin, and those type of guys. And I was basically a young man and basically did what they asked me to do and kind of just listened. And actually, I used to kind of cut school to go see them and hang out with them because I was so intrigued in the whole thing about building a building out of the ground. I come from a first-generation business, didn't know anything about that.
So the AACA serves now as an umbrella organization.
Yes, it is. It's an umbrella organization, and I always said that if I made some money in the industry that I was in, I was going to dedicate all of my time to help young men, young women, and people that have been locked out and shut out and just don't know how to get into the industry.
What are the requirements? How can a business become a part of the AACA? Is it just individuals?
Well, they can call the office at 312-915-5960, but they also need to have a commitment of saying that they want to be a company, and hopefully they're African American owned. We have opportunities for corporations. They can be a part because we believe in bridging. You know, I always say the word of building bridges and removing walls.
So the qualifications for an organization or a business is that they have to be majority black owned, or what?
Well, at least 51%.
Okay.
We asked them to be 51% owner because it gives us a sense that they're in control of their destiny. And that's what we sell to corporate Chicago, corporate Illinois, corporate America, and that's what we push. And the fact that we push it, we want to make sure we can stand with that. But when they are not that, we'd like to know, and we kind of somewhat change it and be creative in trying to make sure that they identify as a African American owned company.
Now, of course, we know that there are different organizations that act as a support mechanism for different groups. What are some of the challenges that African American contractors face that may be unknown to other groups and organizations that, you know, lead to the formation of a group like yours?
Well, some of the impediments that happen is sometimes being African American, black, you know what I'm saying? But the other part of it is that...
So you're talking about just racism?
Yeah, racism and nepotism and cronyism takes place because most African American companies, a lot of them, are not 2 and 3 and 4 generation companies that we be bidding against and that we be coming across. They have the right complexion, the right connection, and they get to work. Where we have, being who we are, African Americans or black or however you want to call it, we have that burden to bear. We have the burden that we don't have the money, or we don't have the banking ability, or sometimes don't have the professionalism.
So some of the businesses that you mentioned, they may be undercapitalized. They may actually try to bid on something that's beyond their scope or beyond the scope of work that they're able to actually...
Yeah, and that's why we have put together the CFP program, which is the Contractor Finance Program.
Okay.
We link companies up with banks and financing institutions as well as factoring companies that are flexible for that they can get opportunities. We have a banking program, our bonding program that helps in increment bonding. See, a project may be $1 million, but you know what the real deal is that you don't do $1 million worth of work. What you do portions of the work. So why not have increment bonding to subsidize that whole barrier about he don't have enough bonding to do the job? Heck, you don't bid the job on a whole. You bid the job on a whole, but you don't do the job on a whole. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, and I always use the saying when I'm in front of my white counterparts is that it's like eating an elephant, eating a turkey. You take one bite at a time.
So with your extensive experience in building and in construction, of course, there's a lot of talk about what is happening in many of the cities. Of course, you have gentrification being discussed, you have affordable housing being discussed. Is that topic something that the AACA tackles, and do you sit down in the meetings?
We deal with the Cook County Housing Authority a lot on it.
The steering committees, and okay.
We deal with the CHA on it, Section 3 program that's done by the federal government, where that people that have or live above or below the poverty level, they can have opportunity to start their own company and get a crack at doing some of the work. And one of the reasons why it touches me so much is that I started with $100. I started with a sense of hope, knocking on doors, having flyers, and just my first job was clean the catch base out. I cleaned that catch base out, came out of there all muddy and stinky, and I washed myself up, took a bath and took a shower, what have you, put on some old English back in the day, took my girl out to Greek Island, had some food, and guess what I was doing next day? I looked for another catch base, because that $75 was gone. So right then and there, that was my catalyst of keeping my fire boiling about jobs and contracts and knocking on doors, convincing people that we can do anything that they want us, that they needed done in their home. You know, so we were pretty motivated, and that spirit has been in me ever since.
Now, let's get to the networking portion of what the organization does. Of course, the first time I actually met you and talked with you was at a networking event at Operation, Operation Rainbow Push.
Rainbow Push.
Sorry, Operation Push doesn't exist.
Right,
but it was at Rainbow Push, and there were many corporations, many of the city manufacturers and agencies were present as well. So tell us a little bit about, not only do you do that on a regular basis, but you have some events coming up as well that can be used for networking for other contractors.
That's right,
maybe
and that was the Contractor Day that you're talking about. And
it was the 16th or 15th year you've done that? Or
it was
something in double digits, I know.
Yeah, it was, what, 14? I can't even remember. I think it was the 14th annual. But what it was is that Contractor Day started by fact that, again, almost like the Urban League in ACA, where it had started that a couple of contractors were saying they'll shut out of work, and they reached that Rainbow Push. And we put together an organization called SEED, which means Coalition for Community Economic Empowerment. And with that, we started looking at jobs and contracts that was going on in the community that a lot of our elected officials was not really paying attention to, or just the fact of the matter that they was doing the work and nobody said nothing to these developers and owners. And so with the help of Reverend Jackson and that whole catalyst, we start meeting there on a regular basis and bringing these people in, talking about opportunities.
Okay.
And so, and what happened was that I just wanted to come there and try to get some opportunity. And what happened is that Reverend Jackson was leaving one day out of town and asked me to come to his car. And I said, yeah, Reverend, what do you need? He said, I need you to start bringing contractors here to start talking about opportunities on a regular basis. And I said, what? He said, some annual thing, something, you know, he mumbles, he said, some annual thing. I said, some annual thing? He said, yeah. I said, why don't you tell Glenn and Larry to do that? They are not going to continue it. You will continue it. I'm like, how will I continue it, you know? And I walked away and said, okay, Reverend, I'll do it. And with him, you can't say no. And he said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then I walked, after he pulled off, I said, dang, how am I going to do that with no money and no budget? And so what it taught me is that everything I've done with no money and no budget. And so I did it the first time out of pocket. And I said, we got to figure out a way how we can bring more people involved. And so I started checking with some of my corporate partners. They said, Omar, we could support something like that. So I started sending out information, and we started getting support from everywhere. I'm saying from grocery stores, from restaurants, from corporations, developers. And then it gave them a platform if they had something that was going on and they wanted to at least talk to 200 to 300 people. In any given day, we were able to put in there on the Contractor Day, 300 or 400 people in the room and the auditorium downstairs.
Okay.
And outside.
Well, tell us how we can reach, or if anyone is looking at the broadcast here and listening to your words, how can they reach the African American Contractors Association? Is there a website, phone number?
Yes, you actually can call 312-915-5960. We had that number since 1989. Or you can go to email me by aacanatlAssoc@gmail.com, which happen to be ACA National Association @gmail.com, or you go to acanational.org website and find out a little more information about the organization if you're interested.
Very good.
And thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being with us and spending some time with us. You've been listening to Mr. Omar Shareef, the founder of the African American Contractors Association. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Take Another Look.